The train station was crowded, noisy, alive with movement, yet for Maya, time felt frozen. She sat in her wheelchair near the platform entrance, one hand resting protectively over her pregnant belly, the other gripping the armrest as if it were the only thing keeping her grounded. Her feet ached, her back throbbed, and the baby inside her kicked softly, as though sensing her exhaustion. She had been there for nearly 40 minutes. People hurried by with phones pressed to their ears, coffee cups in hand, backpacks slung over shoulders. Some glanced at her briefly, their eyes flicking away the moment they registered her condition. Others didn't even look. A few slowed down, hesitated, then continued walking as if helping her would make them late for something more important. Maya tried not to cry. She hated feeling invisible more than the physical pain. She hated that asking for help felt like begging. She hated that the world had suddenly become less kind since she'd needed it most. The elevator to the platform was out of order again. The sign was taped crookedly to the wall, as if it had been an afterthought. The only way up was a long flight of stairs. She couldn't push herself up them. She couldn't carry the wheelchair. She couldn't even stand for long without feeling dizzy. All she needed was a chair. Just a chair placed near her so she could sit properly while she waited for station assistance that never seemed to come. Or someone to help flag down an employee. Or even just someone to ask, "Are you okay?" But no one did. A man in a suit brushed past her so close his briefcase bumped her knee. He muttered a quick, "Sorry," without stopping. A group of teenagers laughed loudly as they walked by, one of them whispering something that made the others snicker. An elderly woman looked at Maya with sympathy, but her own frail body kept her from offering help. Maya lowered her gaze to her belly and whispered, "It's okay. Mama's got you." That wasn't entirely true. She was tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. Tired of doing everything alone. Tired of being strong because she had no other choice. Her husband had left 2 months ago, right after the doctor confirmed complications with the pregnancy. He said he wasn't ready for this kind of responsibility. He said he needed space. He said a lot of things that sounded like excuses. Now it was just her. A loudspeaker announcement echoed through the station, blaring something about a delayed train. Maya barely heard it. Her hands were trembling. The baby kicked again, harder this time, and panic fluttered in her chest. She looked up, scanning the crowd once more, hoping, just hoping, that someone would finally stop. That's when she saw him. He wasn't rushing. He was holding the hand of a little girl, maybe 5 years old, with messy curls and a bright pink backpack. In his other arm, he carried a diaper bag that looked overstuffed and heavy. He wore worn-out sneakers and jeans with a faint stain on the knee. His face looked tired, but not rushed, like someone who had already learned patience the hard way. The little girl tugged on his hand. "Daddy, I'm tired." "I know, Peanut," he said gently. "We'll sit in just a second, okay?" As he turned, his eyes met Maya's. And this time, they didn't slide away. He stopped walking. Maya's breath caught. She didn't want to hope. Hope hurt when it was disappointed. The man looked at her wheelchair, then at her belly, then at her face. His brow furrowed, not with pity, but with concern. He glanced around, as if suddenly noticing everything she had been dealing with, the broken elevator sign, the lack of seating, the indifference of the crowd. "Excuse me," he said, stepping closer. His voice was calm, respectful. "Have you been waiting long?" Maya swallowed. "A while. Did anyone help you?" She shook her head. Something changed in his expression. Not anger exactly, something deeper. Recognition. "Lily," he said to his daughter, "stay right here for a second, okay?" The girl nodded obediently. He disappeared into the crowd. For a moment, Maya assumed he was just another person who had asked a question and then moved on. Her chest tightened. She looked down again, embarrassed for believing. But then he came back. He was dragging a chair. Not a fancy one. Just a plain metal station chair he'd pulled from a closed cafe area. It scraped loudly against the floor as he maneuvered it toward her. He positioned it carefully in front of her wheelchair. "Here. At least you won't have to lean forward." Maya stared at the chair, stunned. "I know it's not much," he said, slightly out of breath, "but it should help." Tears blurred her vision before she could stop them. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled softly, the kind of smile that didn't ask for gratitude. "You're welcome." Then he did something no one else had done. He stayed. He crouched slightly so he was at eye level. Do you need me to find station staff? Or call someone for you? Her hands shook as she nodded. Yes, please. I've got you, he said without hesitation. And for the first time that day, Maya believed it. He waved down a station employee with a confidence that suggested he'd done this kind of thing before, not just asking for help, but insisting on it when it mattered. Within minutes, someone was on the radio calling for maintenance and accessibility support. Maya watched him quietly, still overwhelmed by the fact that a stranger had cared enough to intervene. I'm Daniel, he said when he came back, settling onto the edge of the chair he'd dragged over earlier, making sure his daughter was comfortably seated beside him. This is Lily. Maya wiped her eyes quickly. I'm Maya. Thank you, again. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't stopped. Daniel shrugged lightly, though his eyes were serious. I've been on the other side of that look, he said. The one where you're surrounded by people but completely alone. That surprised her. You have. He nodded. My wife passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. He said it simply, without drama, like someone who had repeated the words so many times they no longer shook him, but the weight was still there. After that, it was just me and Lily. You learn quickly how invisible struggling people can be. Lily looked up at her father and squeezed his hand. Maya felt something warm and aching bloom in her chest. I'm sorry, Maya said softly. Thank you, Daniel replied. And I'm sorry no one helped you before. That shouldn't have happened. They sat there together as the noise of the station faded into the background. For the first time all day, Maya felt her breathing slow. The baby inside her seemed to settle too, as if reassured by the calm. The station staff returned with a portable ramp and apologized profusely. Daniel helped guide the wheelchair carefully, never rushing, never making her feel like a burden. When they reached the platform safely, Maya let out a shaky breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. You didn't have to do all this, she said. I know, Daniel replied gently. But I wanted to. Her train was announced shortly after. As it pulled in, reality crept back in, the fact that this moment was temporary, that strangers crossed paths and then disappeared. Still, she didn't want to leave without saying something that mattered. You didn't just give me a chair, Maya said, her voice trembling again. You reminded me that there are still good people out there. I've been having a hard time believing that. Daniel smiled, softer this time. Then I'm glad I stopped. Lily waved enthusiastically as the conductor helped Maya board. Bye. Be safe. I will, Maya said, smiling through tears. Thank you, Lily. As the train doors closed, Maya caught one last glimpse of them standing together on the platform, a tired single dad and his small daughter, holding hands, completely unaware of the impact they'd just had on someone's life. She spent the ride home staring out the window, replaying the moment again and again. The world still felt heavy. Her problems weren't magically solved. She was still pregnant, still disabled, still alone in many ways. But something had shifted. Weeks later, after the baby arrived, a healthy little boy with a strong cry and curious eyes, Maya found herself thinking about that day often. About how close she'd been to giving up hope. About how one small act had changed everything. She never saw Daniel again. But she carried his kindness with her. And every time she noticed someone struggling, really noticed, she made sure to stop. Even if it was just to pull out a chair. Even if it was just to say, "Are you okay?" Because sometimes, that's all it takes to restore someone's faith in humanity.